Hello. I want to talk about the results of the London mayoral election predominantly. But before I go on to that, a few quick statements about other aspects of the elections that have just been going on here. My cold is more or less cleared up now, so I can talk a bit more clearly, I guess, which is good. The other night there were local council elections in England, Scottish parliamentary elections, police commissioner elections, the London mayoral election. But I negated to mention that there was also assembly elections in Northern Ireland. And as I could tell, assembly elections in Wales. There isn't a great deal to say about Wales because, like England, it remained largely unchanged. I think there was a little bit of UKIP success there, but as far as I know, it's still Labour held the Welsh Assembly, from what I can tell. Apologies if I make any mistake. By the way, if I say anything that happens to be inaccurate, I take full responsibility for that. It's just because I digest information and then I talk about what I've read in these videos, but with this new format of speaking directly into the camera, um, it means I cannot look at documents at the same time, so it's a little bit less convenient than it used to be. But anyway, nothing very exciting in England and Wales. Northern Ireland, again, not any major changes. The DUP, the Democratic Unionist Party, has a new leader, Arlene Foster. So I guess it was her first big test. The DUP held on to their position in the Northern Ireland Assembly, which meant that she retains her position as First Minister of Northern Ireland. Although it's where I'm from, to be honest, I don't pay a great deal of attention to Northern Ireland politics these days, simply because I've grown up in England. It's not, I mean, obviously it's part of the UK, so it's still significant, but I personally don't pay that much attention to it. Within the devolved parliaments at Scotland, I pay most attention to because of these constant independence threats from the SNP. The SNP is down somewhat from 2011, from 69 seats then to 63 now. That to me is good news. Ruth Davidson, the Tory leader, has won a seat, I believe, in Edinburgh. She's sort of an unconventional Tory. She's young. She's an open lesbian. She's not really what one would consider to be the archetypal Tory. Um, but she herself said that she's not complacent and she knows that many people would have voted for her simply from unionist sympathies rather than being very passionate Tories. To be completely honest, if the contest was between herself and the SNP in a seat that I was in, or between any Tory and the SNP, I'd vote for the Tories. Because to me, the issue of keeping this country together goes well above party politics, even though I'm not a Tory at all. To me, that is just such a fundamental thing. Um, anyway, that's a bit of the external news outside of London. But I do want to focus on London. I haven't mentioned the police commissioner elections because don't know what the results are yet, so I can't comment in detail about that. Okay, so Sadiq Khan has become the third mayor of London. Whatever way you look at it, this is a historical event. Now, I know there are people who are downplaying that aspect, but I don't think you can. I think you can't ignore the historical significance of this. Sadiq Khan is basically the highest ranking or the most prominent ethnic minority MP in British history now. There have been other prominent roles, for example, Sajid Javid, the business secretary, and there's been numerous lords and one or two cabinet members over the years, but I think it's fair to say none with the prominence of Mayor of London. This role is not only big because it's our capital city and one of the world's great cities, but because whoever is Mayor of London actually, by extension, has the largest personal mandate of any politician in the United Kingdom, in fact, arguably in Europe. Um, because we are a parliamentary system, every MP in the country is first and foremost elected to their own office. So, although David Cameron is Prime Minister, the votes for him personally are just from his constituency. So when he becomes prime minister, obviously it's a reflection on his leadership of the party, and his party then gets into government. So I'm not minimizing the role of prime minister, but mayor of London is the largest personal mandate. and Sadiq Khan got a very comfortable win. I'm going to read out the statistics here. This has also had the biggest field of any mayoral contest since the contest began in the year 2000. I believe it's the fifth contest: 2000, 2004, 2008, 2012, 2016. So the same cycle actually as American elections. So he has achieved 56.85% of the vote. That's very comfortable. And the exact figures were 1,310,143 votes for Sadiq Khan. His nearest rival, Zach Goldsmith of the Conservative Party, got 994,614. So, in actual terms, that is a difference of, well over 300,000. That would be like a medium sized city in the UK in difference. Or to put it another way, that is like Coventry. So, imagine the whole city of Coventry in difference of votes. Or another way to put it is like a big London borough in difference. So it's a very comfortable win. I'll speak more about Goldsmith's campaign in a second, but after this, a distant third place was Sean Berry of the Green Party, who got 150,673. This was followed by Caroline Pidgeon of the Liberal Democrats, 120,005. I should say nationwide, the Lib Dems have had a little bit of a resurgence from last year's catastrophic results for them. Their leader, Tim Farron, was even opening champagne, I believe, in don't know which seat it was, but they have a little glimmer of resurgence. Peter Whittle of UKIP was at 94,373. Just give me 5 minutes, please. That's okay. Yeah, thank you. Okay. Apologies for that little interruption. Okay, so Peter Whittle of UKIP at 94,373. Then getting into smaller parties, Sophie Walker of the Women's Equality Party got 53,055. I'm going to come back to that because I do have a few views on that issue. Um, George Galloway of the Respect Party, who is a very controversial figure in British politics, got 37,007. Britain First, 31,372. I should add that the Britain First candidate, I haven't written down the guy's name actually, but he rather disgracefully turned his back whilst Sadiq Khan was making his victory speech. I thought that was extremely unprofessional and a snub to democracy, but I'll come back to that in a minute. Cannabis is safer than alcohol. Uh, Lee Harris, representing that party, 20,537. David Furness of the BNP, which is a largely defunct far right party, got 13,325. The Independent Prince Zelensky, 13,202. One Love, led by Ankit Love, or represented by Ankit Love, 4,941. Their party manifesto seems to be based on green issues and interesting backstory, though I should say, about Ankit Love. Apparently, the party was founded whilst he or she, I don't know, which is was founded whilst they were in a hostel in Hackney last year. So interesting origins to that. Okay, so Sadiq Khan has a very, very comfortable lead there, very big mandate. That's also the largest percentage ever in a London election. He's beaten Boris Johnson's 2008 result of 53%. So very comfortable mandate. However, with that, it basically means that he is going to be under extra scrutiny from his critics, and they're going to be watching him like a hawk for anything that they can use as ammo against him. This campaign has largely been categorized by negativity, and Khan didn't shy away from mentioning that in his speech. But he said poignantly that hope, not fear, has won this election. I think the British generally respond better to positive campaigns than negative campaigns. I'm not saying that negative campaigns never have traction because they sometimes do, but basically, Zach Goldsmith has been widely condemned, or perhaps more fairly, his campaign has been widely condemned for the negative tactics that they were using, primarily to present Sadiq Khan as a flip flopper who has sympathies to Islamist movements. Now, Muslim conservative people have, for obvious reasons, condemned this. One peer said that he was reluctantly voting for Goldsmith, but with a heavy heart. Baroness Varzi, who was the former chairman of the Conservative Party, has spoken out strongly against it. In fact, Zach Goldsmith's own sister, Jemima Goldsmith, who was married to the cricketer Sadiq Khan, excuse me, I'm mixing up my cans here, married to the cricketer Imran Khan, who of course is a prominent politician now in Pakistan. Even she said this was not characteristic of the brother that she knew. So a lot of people have speculated that it's actually his campaign manager, a consultancy firm led by Linton Crosby, who received the knighthood yesterday, has been behind this negative traction. Um, I sort of agree with what Michael Fallon said, the defence minister. He said that it is right that candidates are scrutinised. However, when the scrutiny gets to a point where it comes across as constant personal attacks based on someone's religion, that then leads to a lot of cynicism. When organisations like Britain First, I watched their video on Sadiq Khan. You know, I don't want to be naive. I want to know who's running our nation's capital. I want to know the character of the person, the background, and so on. So I saw that Britain First video, which is entitled Sadiq Khan Exposed. Now, in that, they were alleging that he was sympathetic to Islamists who were talking about violence in the wake of Muslim, in the wake of cartoons mocking the Prophet Muhammad, and etc. They had this long range of accusations leveled against Sadiq Khan. Now, the problem with this is, whatever truth may be in that, it's very, very difficult to reconcile that the same man is in favour of gay marriage, and the same man actually, because Sadiq Khan himself addressed some of these issues, and he said that a fatwa was issued against him by Islamists outside his constituency office where they were protesting for being too liberal. He's actually been threatened by Islamists. Um, so I just can't believe that he is the Islamist that they're painting him to be. It is true that he's a practicing Muslim. It is true that he said he believes in God. So what? So do millions of other Britons. Um, I really, really think that digging at someone's past, you need to be very careful going down that line because it can just end up as a smear campaign. I mean, the Goldsmith campaign was targeting people it perceived to have Hindu and Sikh surnames in order to try and scare them into thinking that, this Muslim is going to be leading London. Some of the comments from far right people have been absolute nonsense. They've been saying things like, get ready for your Friday prayers when Sadiq Khan becomes mayor. ISIS will be laughing their heads off. Actually, if anything, ISIS is going to be furious because what it's going to do is send a big cog in their propaganda. They're always saying the West hates Muslims, the West has this war on Muslims. It's one of the most toxic things they do, trying to scare people across the world, trying to scare Muslims across the world that there's some massive Western conspiracy against Islam. Now, when one of the greatest cities in the world, one of the West major cities, elects a man who happens to be Muslim as its mayor, that sends out the exact opposite message of what these jihadist thugs are trying to brainwash people into believing. Because 1.3 million people have endorsed this man. And that's not 1.3 million Muslims or 1.3 million Islamists, more to the point. That is 1.3 million Londoners, diverse people, including many, many Christian, atheist, and other Londoners. So the scaremongering technique has just failed miserably. Incidentally, Britain First, as those statistics show, got a very measly result of, just read it out again, 31,372. It's a blimp. Now, they are a first time party, but even so, it just shows that the fear-mongering campaign doesn't work. Goldsmith's figures are well behind Khan's, so it's not even like it was close. Um, I mean, Goldsmith couldn't even do an interview to sort of congratulate Sadiq Khan. Whether he did in his concession speech or not, I don't know. I haven't seen that yet. But look, my view is this: Sadiq Khan's going to be mayor for at least 4 years, 8 if he wins re-election. If in that time he demonstrates that he is in any way sympathetic to extremists, if he demonstrates that he is not taking enough action against extremists, he should absolutely be scrutinised and criticised. Someone who wants to be mayor of one of the world's great cities absolutely should face scrutiny. So for me, the issue is not that people were talking about issues that may have occurred in the past, and I still think you need to take that with a pinch of salt because a lot of these issues did not come up at the time. Um, but let's say, for the sake of argument, that Sadiq Khan was once more hardline. Is it really a bad thing if politicians do have a so-called U-turn and they moderate or they get more mainstream? I don't think someone, and I apply this logic to anyone, I don't think someone should be held in contempt for their whole political career because of a position they may once have had. The only thing that matters now is how good, how effective a mayor Sadiq Khan will be. And like I say, if there's any indication whatsoever that he is sympathetic to Islamist groups, or if he is not doing enough to tackle Islamist groups, which is a major problem in London, it is, then by all means he should be absolutely scrutinised and face the fallout from that. But until that happens, people should respect the democratic decision here. 1.3 million Londoners have voted for this man, and he absolutely deserves the respect of the office that he holds. So those far right reactionaries need to get a grip. There's not going to be Friday prayers issued by City Hall. There is not going to be forced conversions to Islam because the new mayor happens to be a Muslim. And incidentally, yes, he's a practicing Muslim, but first and foremost, he's mayor of London. He barely mentioned Islam in his campaign. You know, I really think if this man was an ideological Islamist, he wouldn't have shied away from it. He hasn't done that. Now, to touch briefly on the other parties, um, I was going to make a separate video about the Women's Equality Party, but I may as well integrate it into this video. It's a new party. The leader is Sophie Walker. Um, I've seen a few interviews with her and a few video clips that they've got. Has to be said, 53,000 votes for a first time party is a pretty strong performance. Actually, I think it was 56,000 votes. Just double check that. 53,000 votes. Um, in a city of 8 million, that may not seem like much, but it is quite significant for a new small party. Now, I have to say, Sophie Walker herself comes across as quite soft spoken and reasonable. But the very pretext of this party is, in my view, fundamentally wrong and divisive. If you have a party that is only catering for half the population, then by its very nature, it's not egalitarian. They say the party is necessary to address issues like income inequality, the pay gap, and all these other sort of bread and butter feminist issues. But I contend that if this was, let's say, the white people's party or even the black people's party, there would be an outcry because of the racist nature. Now, to me, there is no difference between that and a party that is fundamentally sexist in its outreach. They may have male candidates, I don't know if their party even allows men or not, I don't know about that, but I still argue that the very pretext of this party is fundamentally sexist. You simply cannot talk about equality and then say that you only care about half the population. It's downright nonsensical. Am I saying there's no equality issues out there? Am I saying that there's no issues that impact women? No, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that the best way to deal with those issues is through mainstream politics. Now, to be clear, they have a right to form a party, they have a right to stand. That's what the suffragettes campaigned and suffered for. I understand that. But I think this is fundamentally a divisive party, and I really, really hope that journalists do their job and put these questions to them. Put questions to the leader and say, wait a second, you're only interested in half of London. Or if it's on a national scale, half of the country. You simply cannot be marketing only to half the population and then say that you're all about equality. It's nonsensical. It's a complete contradiction. And I hold the same principle to masculist parties. There is a men's rights party, I believe, led by Mike Buchanan. They raise valid issues. But again, I hold the same thing. I wouldn't vote for them because I think if you have a party that is only catering to a particular demographic, it is fundamentally, by nature, divisive. That's what it is. As someone who believes in men's rights, um, I believe it's much more practical to get elected to a mainstream party and campaign within, um, or women's rights or any other rights, but campaigning on a specific single issue or single demographic, which in my view is dangerous and divisive, ultimately it's just misguided. And I really, really hope journalists do their job and ask the leader tough questions. Because from what I see so far, they've been given a free ride. They're not being asked these questions. I saw Sophie Walker with Sean Berry of the Greens being interviewed on the London Mirror results. The journalist, male journalist, just didn't ask any of these questions. She was given a free ride. She was just asked generic questions about what she thought of the contest and so on. That's disgraceful. If this party does continue to do well, I really, really hope they are put under further scrutiny because the moderate tones do not count for the fact that fundamentally the pretext of this party is sexist. It just is. If you have a party that is only concerned about men's issues, then it's fundamentally divisive. Well, it's the same principle with this. And I can't understand why they've done so well. I mean, I could say, oh, it's 53,000 angry feminists, but that's a little bit. I don't know whether they've just had a good campaign or whether they've been very active on doorsteps. I don't know what it is, but it concerns me. Is I think their language and the pretext of the party is fundamentally divisive. You can talk all you want about the gender pay gap, etc., but at the end of the day, if you're only caring about half a city, my question to Sophie Walker is why do you deserve to be mayor when you only care about half of Londoners? What are you going to do for male Londoners? What are you going to do about male suicide rates? What are you going to do about male homelessness? What are you going to do about all these issues that also or disproportionately impact men? You know, I think she should be asked those questions. Um, I am wary about any movement or any party that only caters to one demographic or is a single issue party, which is what this. I won't even say this is a single issue party. This is a single demographic party. In my view, that's dangerous and divisive by nature, and I challenge the Women's Equality Party to prove me wrong. Firstly, I've some very straightforward questions. Do they allow men to join the party, or is it women only? Secondly, how can they claim to be egalitarian when they only care about the needs and issues impacting half the population? One of their taglines, or one video attributed to them or involving them, says equality benefits everyone. But how can you put out that line when you only care about half the population? So they're explicitly going to ignore any issues that may disproportionately impact men. It's a disgrace. And we'll see what happens. But I, I, I was going to make a separate video, but to be honest, I don't really want to give them more attention. I don't deserve it. Um, and if people think I'm being too harsh, or you're thinking, oh, Nathan, but these are legitimate issues of the gender pay gap and so on, the point I would make is it's not necessarily about the issues that they're raising. It's about the pretext of only targeting half the population. That's fundamentally divisive. I defy anyone to say that it isn't. It is. If you have a party that only cares about Christians, or only cares about Muslims, or only cares about white people, or only cares about black people, those parties would be dismissed as extreme. I don't see the difference. And I really hope journalists start to do their job and don't give this party a free ride, because that's what's happening so far.